Hello everyone and welcome to the Chrissy B Show, and we are in fact the UK's only TV programme that's dedicated to your mental health and well-being. Today we'll be looking at how feeling different through illness, disease or in tonight's guest case, a tragic accident, can severely affect a person's mental health. We'll also be joined by our resident psychologist Audrey Tang to give a deeper insight into the issue, as well as media doctor Rob Hicks, who'll be speaking about some rare diseases and also answering any medical questions you might have later on in our Drs Answers segment. And also later, I'll be giving my own tips on what to do when you feel different. But first, let's see what you have to say about feeling a different way to other people. So Hayley Marie says, never ever feel like you have to act a different way just to please someone. You shouldn't have to be anyone but yourself. Baby Dab sums up how many people out there feel. And he says, I often wonder if I feel different from others because I am, or if it's my mental illness. And whereas Leah Kim says, I'm fine. You're not fine, and you don't need to pretend that you are. So pick a different word. Lost. I feel lost, okay? So there are also many different reasons why people can feel different. Sometimes it can be a mental illness or disability that stops you from feeling like you belong, or perhaps you're living in a new and strange place that makes you feel like maybe you're not quite at home and things are a bit unfamiliar. But the truth is you are not alone. And if you ask most people if they feel that they fit in, the majority will often say no. And here's something quite interesting. Now, this was a Eurobarometer survey conducted last year, which showed that as many as 64% of people in the UK deny that they feel in any way European. In contrast, just 25% of people in Germany and France feel that way. And according to the author of the report, which is Rachel Ormston, she says relatively few people in Britain feel European, and this has been the case ever since Britain first joined the EU in 1973. So this notion of us feeling different was backed up by a decision to leave the EU earlier this year. So very interesting stuff there. But now it's time to speak to my guest for today. Now, she's only 17 and she's extremely brave to come on the show today and speak about her experience. She went through something horrific and it led to her feeling depressed. But now she's going to talk about what she went through actually and how she turned her life around. Let's meet Tatiana Finlater. Tatiana, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, I did receive your email and I loved the fact that you were willing to be so open about what you've been through, because it has been a really tough time for you. Yeah. But can you take us back to the day of the accident, what you remember? Because you're only 8 years old, right, at the time?
So it was the day after my birthday and I was at home. And then all I remember is like all my clothes had just been lit up in flames. And I remember in school as well, we used to see posters like, if you was on fire, roll on the floor. Mm-hmm. So I rolled on the carpet as like first instinct, and it didn't work. So I went to my bathroom, I got a bucket. It took, I think, 5 or 6 buckets of water, just chucking it on myself to like put the fire out. And you were at home by yourself at this point? I was at home by myself.
Mm-hmm. And do you remember, do you remember any pain or anything like that, or was it just too much in shock?
I think because there was so much adrenaline pumping through, I couldn't tell you if I was in pain or not. Mm-hmm. All I remember is that I felt heat like on my body. It's like being in the sun for like a whole day. That's what it felt like to me.
Mm-hmm. And then what happened after that? Because obviously it was very frightening. When did you actually get help?
I think it was when my mum had come home, and then she realised straight away that something was wrong, and her first instinct was...
By that time the flames were out and everything? Okay.
And I had changed my clothes because my clothes started to feel weird on my skin. Mm-hmm. So my mum called the ambulance, we were in there, and I remember being in hospital and it felt like I was in Casualty or Holby City. Mm-hmm. It didn't feel real. And I remember they was checking my obs, doing all of this, and they had to cut off my clothes because it would have melted into my skin. And then they gave me something, put me to sleep, and then I remember waking up again in hospital.
Can you talk us through the rehab and what you actually went through with that?
With the rehabilitation, the surgeons always told me it would take a long period of time. Even now, I have to miss school because I'm having operations and skin grafts. And
it's like 7 years or so later.
Yeah, because my skin, as I'm growing, my skin's getting tighter. But with the mental side, I had to speak to like psychotherapists, and I felt I didn't really want to speak to them. It was a thing where I tend to close myself off because no one really understood what I was going through except me. I was depressed, I was sad. I used to wear a fake smile on my face because I didn't feel happy at all. I wasn't me. I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience. There was a time where I even contemplated suicide. I used to have suicidal thoughts because I was so depressed.
At age 8, you were thinking of killing yourself?
Yeah.
And how long were you in hospital for? Was this all going on while you were still in hospital?
Yeah, I was in hospital for 10 months. It took that long for me to learn how to walk again, being able to use the bathroom by myself again. And even when I finally grasped the ability to do that, I still had to be assisted, especially with my skin. I couldn't use normal soaps, or I'd get a rash or I'd get bumps, and then they'd have to come and check, and then I may have stayed in again. So it was really horrible.
And physically, how were you feeling? Because obviously you said at the time of the accident you couldn't really feel the pain. You just remember the heat because of the adrenaline. But talk us through maybe what you were feeling physically with all the operations you were having to undergo and all of that stuff.
I think physically I was just sore. That's the only word I could say. Literally every time I moved, even if it was to turn my head because I have burns on my neck, it would feel so painful. Or even to walk, even though they used to give me a walking frame to learn how to walk again, my legs would feel so painful because I had skin staples in my leg to hold my skin together, and I had it in some places on my arm as well. So it was just sore every time, even if it was little movements, I'd be like, ow, that really hurts. And they used to give me like a lot of medication to help as well.
Okay. And then, Tatiana, you went home obviously after the 10 months. Then when was it that you started to feel really like different from everyone else? Or was there anything, a particular incident that happened, or was it just everything?
I think it was when I was at home and some of my little cousins and family had come over, and there was one particular little cousin I was close to and that I used to play with a lot, and he came over and he was scared of me, and I felt so, I was like, what? Like this person I was close to scared of me now, so is it my fault? I tend to blame myself because I was like, it's my fault, I'm like this. I don't know what to do.
Did he say anything, or he just wouldn't come near you?
No, he was so scared, he wouldn't even hug me. As to before, he used to hug me, smile, we used to play and everything, even before. Like,
how did that make you feel?
I was very insecure. That made me very insecure, especially because they had shaven my head as well. And I think my hair at that time was something that was just really, I was really attached to. So the fact that I didn't have my hair and I had to grow my hair again, I was so insecure and depressed, and I didn't want to live. I just wanted it to all go away.
Talk us through, I mean, you've so much to go through already at just age 8. It's terrible what you've been through. But talk us through also now growing up into your teenage years. How were you coping with, you know, maybe the way people were reacting to you or saying certain things? Talk us through that as well.
I think it got a bit worse when I was in high school, because it was like a different surrounding. No one knew me, no one knew my circumstances, and it wasn't until I think I was in year 8 or year 7, a girl had approached me, not spoken to the girl, nothing, and said, look at you, you have burns, you look disabled. And I remember right in that spot where I said, I just broke down and cried, and all my friends from my form were hugging me, saying, Tat, it's okay, she doesn't understand, she shouldn't have said that though.
So up until that point, people were quite sort of accepting, and they weren't sort of saying anything bad to you. So that was like the first time you'd experienced something like that.
And even then someone said that my neck looked like a dead person's face, and that just made me really more insecure, and I didn't know what to do about it. So for me, the only way to not think about it was to be like, yeah, I'm happy, even though I don't really feel happy. I could show on the outside that I'm happy, even though I feel sad and I feel broken. And I tried really hard to be the popular girl and try and fit in. So
How did you try that?
like, for example, there was a brand when I was little that used to be really big. So in year, I think 7 or 8, that's the time, all the girls used to dress a particular way. So I would use that, like typical trainers, bag, jacket. I'd use that as a shield so people would look more at my clothing and be like, oh, you're wearing the same thing as me, instead of looking at my scars.
Was that you though, would you say, or was that just a mask?
It was a mask. It definitely was a mask. It wasn't me.
And how did you feel about wearing a mask? Because on top of everything else that you were going through, and the pain of having to have all these procedures done, then also having to pretend, what was that like for you?
The thing is, I didn't feel any feeling towards it. It became so part of my routine that I was just like, oh, I have to be happy. Don't cry. Please don't cry. Like, be strong. If anyone says anything or gives you a look or does anything, just be strong and don't cry. That was my motto.
But inside?
Inside, I was upset. I didn't know what to do because my mum had gone away after my accident because she tended to blame herself. I was a mummy's girl through and through, so not having my mum there as well made it worse. And
so she just left you?
She suffered from depression, and so she used to blame herself, and she used to tell me strange things about, I know it wasn't you who caused the accident. She would make up things to say who caused my accident when I knew it wasn't the case. And then she just kind of disappeared. And then when I was still in primary school, going on to high school, she used to send me birthday cards, letters, even to my little brother. But then I think when I approached 13, 14, it completely stopped.
So you've had no contact with her since? No contact. And what about your dad?
My dad in the beginning was never really in my life. Okay. He used to come in a pattern, so every 5 years I would see him for a couple of weeks and then not see him again. Okay. And the thing is, I have an uncle who I'm really close to, and he was my dad, like that male figure. Okay. So I didn't really feel like I was missing out on anything. But it did hurt a bit not having my dad when I would go to school, and my mum and grandmother would be there, and I love them for that. But not having that male figure to be like daddy's little girl, you know.
And then obviously your mum going as well, it added on top of everything else. But you had, thank goodness you had that positive role model for your life, right?
Yep.
And Tatiana, there's so much to your story, and we were having a chat earlier because we just can't cover everything on today. But after the break, we're also going to bring on Audrey Tang, our resident psychologist, because I just think you're amazing to come on. Seriously, I think you're so brave, you're so young, and you're so brave to come on and talk about this. I want to get her take on everything. I know it's a difficult thing for you to talk about, and you're doing great. And I know you're helping the viewers at home because, sometimes, you could, like I said at the beginning, you can feel different for so many reasons. I know when I was depressed, I felt isolated and I felt different. And that was sort of just, mentally. So, so many things can affect a person. And we're going to be getting some advice from Audrey, and, and you're also going to be telling everybody what you've achieved now, because you have managed to turn things around. Yeah. And you're happy today and you're confident about yourself, which is absolutely wonderful. So do join us after this break. Welcome back to today's program, everyone, which we have titled When You Feel Different and Feel Like You Don't Fit In. So before the break, we spoke to the amazingly brave Tatiana, who's been telling us about her accident. She got burned, and also how all the things that she went through and actually still is going through to some extent, especially the physical side. And now we're also joined by our resident psychologist, Dr. Audrey Tang, to comment first of all on Tatiana's story, and also talk in general about when people feel different and what they go through mentally. So Audrey, thank you so much for coming on as well. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So obviously you've heard what Tatiana's had to say so far. What do you think? There's so much that she's been through.
I have to say, Tatiana, you inspire me. There's a real warmth and an inner peace I get from you, which I don't usually see in anyone who's been through anything like this. You have an acceptance of everything, and that has allowed you to move forward. And I think that's incredibly difficult to find, especially in someone so young. And that's something where, well, it's different, but it's amazing, and that's truly incredible.
Thank you.
It's just an honour actually being on the sofa with you. Really.
It's so lovely, isn't it? So Tatiana, you're going to tell us in just a minute how you turned things around, and how you got past the depression and accepted yourself. But first of all, Audrey, let's have a chat, because obviously this is one case, but there are loads of different situations where people do feel different, whether it's a mental health issue, an illness. So can you tell us sort of what a person can actually go through and why it is so difficult for them to get past things?
There is a difference between a physical difference and mental health differences, purely because physical differences, in a way, because you can see them, there is a form of accepting that. In a mental health issue, sometimes the person who's suffering from a mental health issue almost feels they have to prove something for somebody to believe them in the first place. In terms of looking different, the thing that really touched me was when you were talking about your little cousin. And of course, a child wouldn't necessarily understand, they're just reacting. It's of course not your fault, but I can understand why you can sit there and think, oh my goodness, is it me? Are they reacting to something in me? But sometimes I feel that we can learn a lot from children by sort of saying, they address the elephant in the room. And sometimes what can really help is by saying to somebody, do you mind if I ask you a question? Or how would you like me to address your situation? Because often we're so afraid of offending somebody, we can see a difference and we don't want to make a big deal about it, that we actually avoid it, and we may even start avoiding them. And that's even worse. So sometimes I think that we can learn something there too, by actually saying to somebody who has, whether it's a physical disability or difference or whatever it is, speaking to them and saying, what would you like me to ask? What would you like me to talk about? What is it okay to talk about? How would you like me to talk about it? Speaking to you about that. And there was something that you mentioned, it was in the green room, about how people would ask about you. And one of the problems of being different is you can end up being, oh, the girl who was in that house fire. And then the voice changes and the head goes to one side and it's all sympathetic, but they're not even talking to you, they're talking about you even whilst you're in the room. And that can be so isolating as well, because you become a label, you don't become the person anymore. And when you were saying that people were asking your grandmother about you rather than actually even speaking to you about what happened, that was really sad, and that's a very difficult thing to go through.
Now, it's something quite interesting that you mentioned that I'd actually like to ask Tatiana about. How would you have liked people to talk to you, or to ask? Would you have liked them to ask a question, a particular kind of question? What would you have preferred at that time when you were going through all of that stuff?
I think, if I think back to when I was younger, I would have preferred if people didn't say anything to me at all. But now, as I've gotten older, I understand people are curious, and there's some things in this world that people just genuinely don't know. So I think now I'd rather some people not be so abrasive and up in my face, like, what happened to you? Oh my gosh, it's so sad. But, do you mind if I ask you a question? Or do you feel comfortable talking about it?
Okay. So it's just the way that, the question is asked. Because it's just a very important thing to know, because sometimes, like I've said on the show before, it's very easy for a person that's going through something to even kind of get angry and say, I wish people would just understand me. But the thing is, we need to understand that other people don't understand, and this is where we need to start making the changes to actually explain, well, this is how it is, this is what I go through, and if you don't know about it, what you said was it sounds insensitive. I know you don't mean it, but it sounds insensitive. This is how maybe you could address the issue, and that's how we're going to get. We're going to start to make changes. But if we're just all closed off and like we get offended at anything, nothing's going to change, and everyone's going to judge everyone.
It's the two extremes. On the one hand, you mentioned that horrible experience of the bullying that went on, but also on the other end of the scale, you get the people who are overprotective and not wanting to offend and not wanting to say anything, and those two polarized behaviours are not helpful in any way. You want that balance. You want somebody who's able to talk with you about your experiences, but also able to be sensitive about it at the same time. And I think one of the hardest things can be, when it comes to difference, is parents. I was at a conference where I was speaking to a doctor who dealt a lot with epileptic children, and he said that one of the biggest concerns he had was the parents' behaviour. The child wasn't allowed to play in case they had a fit, or they weren't allowed to go out in case they had a fit. And that overprotectiveness made the child feel different and not want to get involved in anything because mum or dad wouldn't be happy with it. And that although they just love the child and they don't want anything to happen to them, that can cause a problem as well. So it is about having that balance between the understanding and the compassion and empathy with the situation, but also being able to address it.
Definitely. Now, Tatiana, tell us how you turn things around, because you're not depressed anymore. You're very confident, I have to say, as well, even though you're a little bit nervous to come on TV today, but that's perfectly understandable because it's a new experience for you. But tell us, how did you get past everything?
I think it took a lot of acceptance, where instead of crying about the situation, crying about something that can't be changed, why not turn it into a positive? And also as well, from my grandmother, my cousins and my friends, always pushing me to come out my comfort zone, just to be confident, because they always remind me, I'm still Tatiana, there's just a small difference. I'm still the girl that used to make people laugh, tell crazy stories, so but to be honest, most of it goes down to my grandmother. She's been so amazing, taking me hospital. There were times where I was in hospital for 6 weeks once and I had to spend my birthday there, and my grandmother would come straight from work there and look after me and bring me food, and she would be there till all 9, 10. And I'm like, Nan, you have work? And she's like, no, I'll stay here, I don't mind. I'd be like, Nan, you can go, it's fine.
Oh, that's lovely. So she was very positive. So it was very important to have the positive influences around you then. Obviously very important. Audrey always say that, surround yourself with positive people.
Absolutely, and it happens with anything. If you're trying to deal with an alcohol problem or drugs problem, something like that, changing the people that you hang around with can make a huge difference. If you are going through something and you're surrounded by positive people all the time, that's even better. There's something I wanted to pull out with that. You were saying you wanted to be popular, and again in the green room you mentioned a girl that was really popular and you sort of wanted to hang around with her. The only thing I would say about that, or the comment I would have, is one that sometimes people can be mean not because you're different, but because genuinely the personalities clash. People are just mean. And sometimes when we feel different, it's very hard to separate. Actually, it's a personality clash with, it must be me, it's something that I'm doing. And that's important to be able to do as well. There are just sometimes mean people out there. There are just sometimes people we're not going to get along with. And we need to know what's to do with us and what we can control, and what actually, you know what, that's just them, and let's not worry about them.
That's a good point as well, definitely. Now, just another question, Tatiana, because you haven't stopped here, because you are now you started up something to help other people. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I initially got the idea from my youth group. We were doing a purpose called 7 Weeks to Excel. So I didn't really want to waste these 7 weeks just doing nothing and let them fly by. And I remember the person that was leading the meeting was always like, think big, be bold, do something that you're going to enjoy. So I was thinking, what can I do? And I was like, okay. So I've gotten burnt, and there's even young people I know now that tend to struggle with completing everyday things. So what can I do? So I started an awareness project called the YPLB, which stands for Young People Living with Burns. And I just wanted the young burn survivors to have a voice, because there are a lot of adult ones. Like, for example, Katie Piper, who I've met personally and is really nice, but there was no one for, say, the 11 to 18 spectrum and what it was like, especially going through teens, what it's like, how you could feel insecure, how certain things can really get to you. So I wanted to be that voice.
That's amazing. So how is that going? I know it's in the initial stages at the moment, but what are your plans? What are you doing?
My plans, I actually want to start raising money to help the Burns camp that initially helped me in the beginning.
Okay.
Because that place, I'm so thankful for that place, because a lot of my confidence I wouldn't have if it wasn't for that place.
Tell us about the Burns camp.
Burns camp is a lovely charity run by two people called Dave and Karen, and it's a thing where every summer in August we come together, just people, young burn survivors from London, Essex, Bristol, and we just come together and have fun, and we do different activities as well.
That's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, very important.
That's really good. And now you decided to do your own project, and who knows where that's going to take you. But I definitely see big things for her. She's just so brave, so brave, and
absolutely. And actually, you're the perfect person to be the voice, be that spokesperson, because of your maturity and your understanding of it. And it's not, so I don't get from you somebody who is wearing a mask anymore or trying to cover something up.
No.
What you see is what you get, and it's wonderful.
That's lovely. Tatiana, thank you so much for coming onto the show today and for sharing your experience, and all the best with your project. I think you're amazing. Audrey, thank you so much for your input as usual. We'll see you again very soon. I think it's next week, isn't it? You're on again.
I think so, yes.
Thank you so much. And we do have more, guys, after the break, because we're going to be talking to Dr. Rob Hicks about different types of diseases that can affect a person mentally as well as physically. And also later we have our Drs Answers session. So if you have a medical question, any question whatsoever, and no question is stupid, you can email anything through to us on info@chrissybshow.tv. We'll see you right after this. Hi, I'm Chrissy B, and my show is all about improving your mental health and being happy. Join me every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 10 p.m. on my channel Sky 203. Visit chrissybshow.tv for more information and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Chrissy B Show. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Chrissy B Show, and on our Facebook page, The Chrissy B Show. Welcome back to today's program, everyone, which has been all about feeling different. And we heard the incredible story of Tatiana before the break, who told us about the accident that she suffered and what she's been through with the burns, and how also she's turned her life around. And if you've missed the beginning of that, please do head over to our YouTube channel in a few days' time, which is Chrissy B Show, and make sure you watch the show there, because it's really inspiring. She's an amazing young woman. Okay, so now I'm joined by Dr. Rob Hicks, because we're going to be speaking about something as well very important, and we will do have our Doctor's Answer session later.
We do. Lots of questions to answer
so welcome
today.
to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, but just before that, in the UK, just to let you guys know that 1 in 17 people will be affected by a rare disease at some point in their lives, and this actually equates to approximately 3.5 million people in the UK and 30 million people across Europe. And to put this into perspective, if every person on the planet with a rare disease lived in one country, it would be the 3rd most populous country in the world. So this shows that while some particular diseases might be very rare, there are millions of people living with an illness that isn't widely recognized or understood. And this can, of course, lead to feelings of alienation, depression, and vulnerability, as we've seen today with Tatiana's story. What did you think of Tatiana's story?
She's an amazing young woman, isn't she? I mean, not only just courageous, but very positive and very forward-thinking. You know, and you know, to bring such positive attitude from what was a terribly negative event, and could have changed, you know, her outlook for good to be negative. I think she's a very inspirational person for others who not necessarily have been involved in burn tragedies, but for anybody who is actually different, either in the way that they look, or the way that they think, or whatever that issue is for them. So and you know, humbled I was actually.
It was
humbling to listen to her story.
Yeah, definitely. So now we're going to speak about rare diseases. So tell us about them, because there are quite a few of them.
Yeah, they're individual conditions. You know, there might be few people with these conditions, but there are thousands of diseases that qualify for the definition of being rare. So for example, in Europe, the definition of a rare disease is when that disease affects fewer than 1 in 2,000 people. In the States, the definition is there have to be fewer than 200,000 people at one point in time with a condition. So when you think about these, you compare them with heart disease. In the UK, there are over 2 million people in the UK alone with heart disease. Globally, there are millions. In the UK alone, there are around about 1.7 million children with eczema. So obviously, eczema and heart disease wouldn't go close to being considered a rare disease. But one of the challenges with the rare diseases is that although 2 people with the same condition may be the same name of condition, they can actually have a different set of symptoms. So you mentioned already about how these diseases can be isolating. You may be brought together by the fact that you are under the same umbrella by name,
Yeah, but it's
But
still
actually,
very
you haven't
different.
got anything in common, because one person might have one set of symptoms, or one person might have another. And one of the problems, obviously, with rare diseases is making the diagnosis in the first place. So it can take years before a diagnosis is made, and over the course of that time, misdiagnoses may be made, or indeed the condition may be misdiagnosed permanently because there isn't enough knowledge about the disease, to help confidently make that diagnosis. And from that point of view, for the person who has a rare disease or a rare condition, it can be incredibly frustrating, because they want, obviously, to know about their condition so they can look after themselves, do the best for themselves, but that information may actually not be readily available, or indeed it may not exist, because these conditions are so rare. There might be a genetic condition, or it might be a skin condition. So people haven't yet researched it enough. And the other thing that comes with the frustration point of view is simply the fact that people are always being questioned. As we've heard, it's a case of, or what's wrong with you? And the person has to, because it's not easy for you and I as an individual to find out about this condition, we then obviously ask. And then the person says, well, I've got to go through this all over again, and actually I'm bored, I'm fed up with telling people about my condition. I want people to see me. Yeah. I don't want people necessarily just to see me as the condition. So, the frustration and the problems that people are faced with are significant. And dealing with a rare condition is made harder because of those issues.
How do you think? I know it's like quite a big question, but what's the best way to deal with that then? Because there are so many elements to this and so many difficulties. What's the best thing a person with a rare disease can do?
Well, I think one is, although it may not be easy, is actually to find a support network of other people. And now the internet has made that a bit easier. So in the past, so that's before the internet, if you had a rare disease, and you might have been one of 5 in the UK, telephone, travel, the inconvenience of having to meet up would be made, and for some people it wouldn't be possible. Now the internet, with forums and support groups, etc., has I think improved that scenario. I think the other thing is, we mustn't forget of the inconvenience of conditions, not because of just the regular appointments that people have to have, but in the UK there may be just one centre where there are experts in this condition. So people might have to travel far and wide, miss school, miss work, miss time with their friends and family. But I think the other thing to think about is that one of the things that social and condition support networks have done has made people, I think, feel less isolated. Less that, I'm the only one and I've got nobody to share this with. And you heard earlier Tatiana talking about the Burns camp, where everybody
that's lovely
there,
what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's there with a common thread. Yeah, they're there because they have suffered the tragedy of some type of burn. And so I think for the person with a rare condition is to find out as much as they can, make contact with other people in what way is most convenient for them, and actually may be proactive when they're confronted by people and say, look, I hope you don't mind, but look, I've got a condition, can we talk about it some other time? Or if you do want to know, here's a website, or here's a booklet. Unless they feel very, very confident, and if they want to talk about their condition.
And what about friends and family then? What's the best way to deal with it?
Well, I think one of the things that we can all do, friends, family, healthcare professionals, is when somebody has a rare condition, they may look different. Don't stare. That's one of the most important things. It's hard though, isn't it? When you're faced with something different, you sort of It is hard, but I think you can do it. Yeah. I think, if it's possible, learn up about that condition, so that maybe the questions you're asking are questions that might help the person, rather than make them feel fed up. And something I learned when I was in a very junior doctor was treat the person as a person, not as the condition. So the person with the rare disease is just that. They are a person with a rare disease or condition. They're not a rare disease. And I think that goes a long way to help forming a relationship with somebody and actually being able to give them the support that they need and when they need it.
It's so important, that point, isn't it? Because sometimes you're just treated as for example, the mental health condition, the depressed one, rather than the person behind all
I mean,
of
we used to make light of it, and it's appeared in comedy sketches for years. On the ward, oh, it's the hernia in bed 8, or it's or it's the ingrowing toenail in bed 6. But the serious side to that is that's not how anybody should be treated. It should be Mrs. Jones in bed 8 who has a hernia and we're treating it. They are the person first, and they are the disease and condition second.
Very important point to remember, and that will take us nicely into break, Rob, because after the break we're going to be, or not we, Dr. Rob Hicks will be answering your medical questions. So if you have a question about anything at all, any medical condition that you're going through, maybe you've already been to your GP, maybe you haven't yet, but you'd like some advice, please do email us on info@chrissybshow.tv. And as I said earlier, there is no question that's silly, that's, you don't need to feel embarrassed to ask. Please just do email us and we'll get Rob to answer your questions. And you can remain anonymous. We won't be reading out anyone's names. So do join us after this. Welcome back to our show, everybody, and now it's time for our Doctor's Answers session. So don't forget, if you have a question for Dr. Rob Hicks, any medical question whatsoever, you can email us on info@chrissybshow.tv. So Rob, are we ready to answer some questions from the viewers?
We're ready to go.
Right, let's go. Okay, so we've got the first one here. And they say, my 60-year-old father weighs 15 stone. He recently underwent a coronary angiogram where it was found that there were no blockages. However, he continues to feel pain around the chest area, and the consulting doctor said that could be due to muscle pain or something else. Can you please tell me what causes chest pain?
Well, chest pain, incredibly common cause, and what's good to hear about your father is that it's not heart-related by the sound of things, so we call this non-cardiovascular chest pain, and there are a number of different causes. So muscle pain is one. That doesn't have to have strenuous exercise. That could be just digging the garden or moving some furniture that could pull the muscles. Another thing is indigestion. And acid reflux. So if you get an indigestion, which is sometimes it feels like the chest pain of heart problems, or if you're getting a taste in the back of your throat, or you're getting this sort of burning sensation behind the breastbone, particularly when you lie down or after a large meal, or if you're wearing tight clothing, then that can cause chest pain as well.
Okay.
So and sometimes lung conditions. If somebody's struggling to breathe, and they're having to work quite hard, that can cause pains as well. So what should happen now is your dad should be reviewed again, because the process of making a diagnosis is you make a list of possible diagnoses and you sort of cross them off. It's like being a detective, really. You take the clues and you eliminate the usual suspects. So those are the sorts of things. But in the meantime, don't sort of rest on his laurels about having clear arteries. Make sure they stay that way.
Yes,
so,
look after yourself.
Healthy diet, exercise, non-smoking, and keeping stress under control.
And losing some weight, right? 15
well,
stone.
it depends how big he is. If he's a 6'6" chap, then 15 stone.
Yeah, he didn't tell us how tall he was.
Yeah. I mean, we jumped to the conclusion that 15 stone's overweight, but he might be a really, he might be muscle. So, but if he is overweight, then make sure you lose it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So this one says, "Hi doctor, I'm 17 years old and have been wearing contacts for more than 5 years. I don't wear glasses, just dailies, but I have noticed small blood vessels in my eye. I act and model and don't want anything to get out of hand. What should I do?"
Well, I think the first thing to do is actually take the lenses out, because any changes in your eyes are likely to be caused by irritation from the lenses. So take those out. Have a chat with your optician, your optometrist, and get your eyes checked, and they will be very good at actually picking up the signs of whether it's irritation from poor lens care, for example, or whether you need to see a doctor for medical advice, particularly if you've got discharge from the eyes or any soreness in the eyes, or any blurring of your vision, and they'll be able to treat that. The other thing is, once the problem's diagnosed and treated, maybe have a review with the optician, the person who issues the contact lenses, to make sure that you're cleaning them properly and maintaining them properly. Yeah. Because I think, having spoken to optometrists over the years, that's often the underlying reason, is that people perhaps have become less diligent in looking after their lenses. And the eyes are very precious, so you need to look after them.
Look after them well. Okay, next one. I'm a 44-year-old woman, and lately I've experienced sudden moments of feeling lightheaded or dizzy, mainly when I turn my head after I haven't been moving. It happens when I'm standing or sitting, and it doesn't seem to be related to a drop in blood pressure when standing up. I take iron supplements, as I used to have dizzy moments during my period and thought anemia related to menstruation might be the cause, but now it seems to happen every day. Are there any other possible causes for feeling this way?
Well, the first thing to say is there are a few clues in your email there that maybe you haven't yet seen a doctor about your problem and you're trying to self-treat. So I would urge you to have a thorough checkup, because the most important thing is to find out what's causing the problem so the right treatment can be provided. You're suffering with vertigo by the sound of things, and there are a number of different causes of that. That might be an ear-related problem, a nerve-related problem, or a blood vessel-related problem. So labyrinthitis, that's inflammation of the balance canals, often due to a viral infection, will cause that sort of symptom, along with some nausea and sometimes vomiting as well. A condition called benign paroxysmal positional vertigo can cause these symptoms, and that's when a little bit of material becomes loosened within the ear canals and it sends wrong messages to the brain. So it's telling you that actually you're in a different position to what you are, and that's why you feel the dizziness. And there's another condition called vertebrobasilar insufficiency, which is basically narrowed blood vessels, and that can cause these sorts of symptoms as well. So I would urge you to get checked out, and then you get the diagnosis, and then you get the right treatment, and hopefully then the problem goes away.
Yeah. Okay, another one. Rob, so dear doctor, I have symptoms including difficulty sleeping and fatigue, weight gain, feeling full quickly, irritability, general aches and pains, and constantly flushed cheeks. Could I have a cancer or form of rare disease?
Well, that's a whole collection of symptoms, isn't it? And sometimes all those symptoms are relevant to a single condition, but sometimes all those symptoms can be because of lots of different conditions. So, you know, the sort of fatigue and the aches and the irritability, it could be down to depression. The bloating and the feeling full could be down to constipation. So, again, the most important thing here is to be able to have a detailed checkup with your doctor where lots of specific questions can be asked and an examination can be performed. I mean, when somebody has bloating which is persistent, rather than being intermittent, so rather than coming and going, it's actually there all the time. We get a little bit anxious because there are some significant severe conditions that can cause that sort of symptom, and they do need to be checked out. So again, I would urge you just to get those sorted. It may be simple. It may be something as simple as you're overdoing it and actually you need a bit of a break. But whatever it is, it's important to get it sorted out.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and this one says, how can I tell if I have sprained or twisted my ankle? Yesterday I slipped over and woke up today and I can't move my ankle from side to side, but I can point it straight.
Okay, well, when we twist, inverted commas, the ankle, what we're doing is we are spraining it. And the thing to do to look after your ankle is called the Price technique. So P is for protection, so you protect the ankle from further injury. R is for rest, so you keep the weight off your ankle. I is for ice, so a bag of frozen vegetables wrapped in a towel or an ice pack put against the ankle to take down the swelling for say 10, 15, 20 minutes a couple of times a day. You compress the ankle with a compression bandage and you elevate it. So you stick it up on a stool so it's ideally higher than the level of your heart, and that helps the fluid move back to the heart rather than accumulating. So that's how you do your sort of first aid at home for this problem. The other thing is, as a doctor I would ask you, can you weight bear on the ankle, which means can you stand on it? If you can, then it's less likely to be broken. If you can't, then there's a chance you may have actually fractured one of the bones. Minor injuries units in the UK are a great place to get this sort of thing checked out. You don't need to go to A&E with this sort of problem, or indeed your GP. Minor injuries unit will look at the ankle and they'll offer you an X-ray if necessary, and indeed offer you some further advice on treatment, pain relief through painkillers or anti-inflammatories. But the bottom line is most of these injuries are simple sprains. They might take a number of days, sometimes weeks to get better, but again, get it checked so you know precisely what to be doing about it.
And one more, Rob. So it says, hi Rob, recently I have found I'm going to the bathroom very frequently. I drink a good amount of water, but not too much. However, every time I drink, I seem to need the toilet almost straight away. Do you think this is a problem or is it healthy?
That's a really good question, and well done for drinking all the liquid. Most of us don't drink enough. It could be perfectly normal. It could actually be that you're drinking too much, and therefore your body is taking what it needs and flushing out what it doesn't. But there are a few conditions, as a man to be thinking about with these sort of symptoms. One is diabetes. So, going to the toilet frequently, being thirsty despite drinking lots of liquid, tiredness, weight loss, those sorts of symptoms are potentially signs of diabetes, so you should get yourself checked for that. Urinary tract infection, bladder infections will make somebody want to pee more frequently as well. Often it feels uncomfortable, it burns or it stings, but it doesn't have to. So again, that's something to be thinking about. And in men, prostate problems, where the prostate enlarges, it obstructs the usual flow of urine, which means that you may feel that actually you want to go more frequently, but you may not be passing full amounts, so your bladder is not completely emptying. Therefore, you get this sensation to go again. So, as with all problems where they haven't been diagnosed, have a checkup with your doctor, mention your symptoms. Don't be embarrassed about these sorts of symptoms. Your doctor's not going to be embarrassed, and neither should you be. And then you'll find the answer to what the problem is and get it treated. If indeed it needs treatment, it might be just that you're living a very healthy lifestyle, and unlike most people, you need to actually cut down on your fluid intake rather than increase it.
And if it's a woman that's going through these symptoms, the same advice, obviously,
apart from the prostate. Yeah, same advice. I mean, it could be related to diabetes, it could be related to urinary tract infection, could be related to, in men and women, a sexually transmitted infection. But also, something I didn't mention is medication. If you're already on medication, sometimes it's a side effect of a medication and nothing to do with the amount of liquid that you're consuming. Yeah. So have a look on the information leaflet that comes with the medicine. If you can't find that, have a word with your pharmacist. They're experts in medicines and will tell you, whether you need to see a doctor or not.
So Rob, thank you so much for answering those questions for us today.
My pleasure.
And we'll see you again very soon.
Yes, you will.
And guys, don't forget, if you have a question at home that you would like to ask our good doctor here, you can email us on info@chrissybshow.tv. So we have a bit more time left on the show today. So right after this, I'm going to be sharing some tips with you on what to do if you feel different. Alright guys, so as we've seen from today's show, sometimes what makes you different is what can also make you special. So I'm just going to go through a few points very quickly on what to do if you do feel a bit different. So my first point is, don't try to fit in. So never try to fit into a crowd or change who you are in order to appeal to those around you. It's really, really important that you are true to yourself, because whenever you try and you're not really being yourself and you've got this mask on and you're being fake, first of all, it's not comfortable. It's very stressful and I would say draining actually to try and be someone that you're not. You're just like you're acting all the time. And you don't feel good about yourself because that's not really you. It's like you're kind of lying to yourself and to others. So make sure that you don't just try to change to fit in. Of course, there are other situations where it's good to try to change yourself to improve yourself in a sense, and to be maybe an easier person to deal with, or just to improve and we call it self-development, but not so you can just fit in with other people. The second point is, help others and let others help you. So we've seen with Tatiana how important other people can be in helping us to overcome our demons. So there are so many organizations and projects and schemes out there. So you can actually get the help from organizations, and they will be very welcoming because they're there for a reason. They're there to help people. So it's important that you do help yourself and help others as well. My third point is to make sure you follow your own dreams and not anyone else's. So sometimes what we really want to do isn't in line with what is expected of us, or maybe especially by family, by friends, or even by society. But if your passion in life lies in doing something different and unexpected, don't shy away from that. Don't just conform to maybe what's expected. If you really have something that you really want to do inside of you, just go for it. And similarly, point 4 is to put yourself first. So Of course, you will still be kind and generous to others. That's always very important, but often we can get caught up in making other people happy and forget about ourselves. So the more you sacrifice your own happiness to satisfy others, the more you lose your own identity. So, you know, it's very, very important to try to make others happy, your family, your friends, your partner, but don't do that at your expense and forget about yourself and not do anything for you. Make sure you love and look after yourself too. So before we go, guys, I'd just like to leave you with this quote by the late Steve Jobs, who was, of course, the founder of Apple. And he said, "Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them because they change things. They push the human race forward, and while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius, because the ones who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who do." Until next time, bye-bye for now.
It was a very lovely experience. I was nervous a bit at first because I've never really done anything like this, but I was comfortable. Everyone here is really nice and I really enjoyed it.
TV. We'll see you right after this. Pedro. Oh, now you move the camera, George. What was I doing over there?
We give guidance.
Guidance, yes, that's exactly it. And don't forget, guys, if you have any other questions at home, you can email us on Chrissy. What's the info address? Oh no. What is it? Info. Sorry.
And reassurance that it's okay to ask.
Yes, of course it is. And we'll see you again next time.
Indeed.
So guys, don't forget at home, if you have a medical question for Dr. Rob Hicks. Did I say hips?
You said hick, and I should say cups.
Yeah. Okay, start again. Sorry. Well, Rob, thank you so much for answering those questions for us.
My pleasure.
And as oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me brace myself to do this ending.
Now, Chris has just asked me to thank everybody for all your questions today. She's speechless by the level of questions that we've been asked today. And
you should do the ending bit. Right. So now we've got a bit more time left, and now I'm going to be going over to the other side of the studio to talk about some tips on...
Sorry.
Oh, what's the time?
3, 2, 1.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. This is it now. Hang on. I'm so sorry. Wait. I'm so sorry.
Me, it's now me. I can't. I can see you going. I can't.
It's not going to happen today.
Yeah.
It's true.
We need to do this.
That's it.
We need
Let's
to
do this.
All right.
Ready?
Yes.
Yeah. That's it. Hang on. Will it work if I sit this way? How about there? How's it?
That looks good on camera.
Is that
yeah.
better?
So right after this, I'm going to be sharing some tips with you on what to do if you feel different. Yay!
Yes!
We did it!
Yes! Yes!
Sorry about that.
No, it's great. It's great. You'll get a 10-minute show and 50 minutes of outtakes.
Exactly.